How consistent do you have to be to get the results that you really desire, that you crave, that you know you're ready for? Well, I don't think that answer is as black and white as most people make it. And the more entrepreneurial you are, the more creative you are, the more likely you're going to have to respond to a lot that's going on at the same time. And to expect a level of consistency may actually slow your progress down and stop you from hearing your intuition when it speaks to you. Because most of us know that when intuition speaks, it doesn't necessarily speak loudly. It can speak quite quietly, but assuredly. And it can also sometimes even whisper to us. And the more we're intent on, like, I have to do this and I have to do it like this every day, back to that kind of idea of really programming ourselves and, in my opinion, acting like robots, the more we begin to detach from our real power, from our intuition, from that instinct sometimes where we know we're meant to do something in that moment, and we can miss out on opportunities. So while I do use consistency for certain things in certain parts of my life and business, and I have also, I have used it very specifically in times and places where it is relevant, where it is supportive of me. And there's been lots of times when it doesn't feel supportive, and it's really like an uphill struggle to maintain it and sustain it and grow that. So what I want to say here most is that context always matters. It just does. We have to know where we are. We have to know where we're going. We have to understand how we operate best. And when we are that personal with ourselves, we're going to be able to deliver things that also have that kind of energy, that are ripe for the moment. And when, for example, we don't have that power or that energy to be solidly consistent, for example, in business, like day in, day out, something has to be repeated, that time may be actually a really rich time for us, and meant to be used in a different way. Okay, so let me share with you examples of where consistency is pretty common for me, mostly in my personal habits, because I find that I just feel more relaxed, like knowing that I'm taken care of in certain ways, that I'm tending to my self-care, allows me to then place my attention on all the things that I'd actually wanted to. And I usually do this in small ways. You know how they say, like, change like 1% at a time, and you'll be more likely to achieve it than if you have this, these giant goals, which may make you feel pressured to do a lot in a short span of time. Well, sometimes that little 1% has supported me. And I'm talking about like what I eat, when I eat, my exercise routines, my sleep routines, my meditation routines, right? Even my need to write, whether it's writing for my business or it's writing, journaling to get my thoughts out, or to shift my mindset in some way, for example, or simply to express myself because I have a lot that is coming through in the moment, right? So those kind of things, they are fairly consistent, not to like the minute kind of thing, or like, oh my gosh, I have to go and work out on these particular days. But I know within a week, those things are generally going to be adhered to because they support me. I like that regularity. The body is something that really loves a sense of routine. It gets programmed really easily. So if, we're going to work out on, say, Tuesday and Friday, it enjoys that. And I know, like, the times that I have my holiday breaks, and I may not be doing some of that, after a couple of weeks, my body is craving it again. It's like, oh, why? I haven't got that energy moving in the way that I'm used to. Okay, so for self-care, consistency for me is really important. There's things in my life, like, as I said, writing and meditation, my dance classes, like, these are just a part of my world. And I rarely have a reason to sacrifice them for anything else because they offer me a certain kind of foundation that's important from the inside out. Okay, now when it comes to work, when it comes to business, now of course when there is a project, when there is a deadline, there's a certain consistency that we often need to implement. And it looks at, let's look at the way we use that word. What is consistent? What does it mean? Does it mean like 2 o'clock every day I do this? Does it mean 3 times a week I do this? Like, we can use that word and we can use it in a way that's going to benefit us. So what I find more relevant to me is saying like, what are the must do's, right? So when, for example, like say I have, I'm working with 3 clients this week, and then I have some writing work that I'm doing, and perhaps like another project that I'm doing. That's going to require structured times where I can really dive into those things. When I'm with a client, right, my full attention and presence is with them. And there may be things that I'm doing outside of the session, that like ideas and downloads I get for them, that I'm noting down, and I'm making notes throughout the week. But then when I'm with them, I'm fully with them, right? If I'm doing the writing, again, that usually is a concentrated period of time versus, it has to be at 2 p.m. every day, But it is like just a chunk, right? This is where the idea deep work, right? Really being able to focus. So I find that way more helpful in many ways than consistency personally. And of course, it's with the business model that I have. In certain businesses, of course, you need to be consistent, right? You're a restaurant, you want to produce a certain quality of food consistently. If you are printing t-shirts, you want a consistency again in the quality of what shows up, and there's manufacturing and all the stuff that goes on with it, the logistics of it, right? And that does require consistency, right? So of course there are places, but as I said at the beginning of this video, when we're talking about the creative mind, the entrepreneurial mind, and often the leadership, the visionary, right? To force ourselves into too much consistency actually takes away the power that we have for being, we tend to be people who kind of observe a lot, who take in a lot all at once. And so there's a lot moving through us. And we need to be able to move with that flow and sometimes direct that flow, right? So, there are times when, like, for example, last month, I didn't do very many videos as much as I love to. Sometimes I get really into the projects that I am in, and I need to devote a lot of time. And last month in March, I was very much into the less brain-sided activities that required a lot of detail. There was a certain learning curve. I was looking at finances and investing, and you may remember if you've watched that video that I talked about the ecosystem, right? The ecosystem of our higher visions. And so for me, of course, that part of that includes finances, financial health and well-being, what you'd like to create, not just like, I want, X amount of dollars this month or every month, but, like the bigger picture, how it all flows together and how organized I am in that. And, there's times I can really enjoy that, but it takes a certain level of attention and detail that is very different in energy from my more visionary work that I do, or the work that I do to show up for people. This is way easier for me, way like 10 times easier, because it feels really natural. It is something I enjoy. It involves a lot of the natural skills and talents that I have. And so when I get to use it, I'm often like, my energy just expands and increases. So I like to be in it more often than not, right? Whereas that left brain, particularly, like I said, talking about real details, I can enjoy and I can get a lot of pleasure out of, because, especially when I've gone through a learning curve and learned things that I didn't know before, and then can implement them right away and can see a result right away, that's fun too, but it's way more like, one step at a time. And so, this is where you can say I was being consistent for the month in putting my focus in a certain area, but I had to really manage my energy in a way because it took more out of me initially. And there'll be a place once I've, as I said, gone through these the initial steps where I can just leave that piece and it'll grow on its own. It'll work on its own. And then, I can check in every once in a while. It won't need that level of maintenance because I had to put a lot of work up front. So same as often other projects, right? So far with this YouTube channel, I just show up and I talk about what's either on my mind or an experience I've had or an experience I'm sharing with you from a client or someone I know. And I also have an intention that I'd like to do longer videos where I can really go through a topic, go through a theme, a subject, more expansively, something maybe you're going to understand, like, especially if you have a bolder vision that you're creating, that you're going to feel supported through these videos. But that's going to, that requires a certain amount of attention for me to develop those. And I look forward to it, but, I had to kind of put that aside in the meantime since I had other priorities in more recent weeks. And so this is, for me, this kind of style works better where I'm like, okay, it focuses here for a while, then it can focus here, and then this thing is running on its own, then it can go over here, and that allows me to address what's happening out in the world, whatever's happening out there or requiring my attention, as well as tending to like what's happening in me. Where am I just naturally motivated? And I've created my business and life to operate like that. There are certain businesses that I could not do in that style, or I would have to hire a team so they could do the parts that really require that level of consistency that I just don't gravitate to using naturally or having naturally, right? So this is why it's really essential for you to understand yourself. Where do you operate best, right? Where does a flow like start going and the momentum just develops? Where are the areas that you have to really give energy before it's going to produce? When you know that kind of information, now you can design your days and your weeks and months so that they are both enjoyable, right? You feel alive, you feel you have this vital energy in you. You can really tap into joy and higher elevated energies. And you can also get things done so that you're not always in this kind of heavy state of, I have to do, this is my long list of things, and I'm controlled by the list, right? Because that's an exhausting way to live, and it also has often repercussions on our well-being, our health, and our relationships, and takes time away from things that we actually love and the bigger reasons why we are here and the things that we want to do. So let me see if there's anything else I want to say. It was around consistency. There are plenty of people who really operate on it. They like predictability. There's a sense of real safety that they experience in their nervous system and all of that. And I find those people, they gravitate to certain kind of jobs or certain kind of businesses because they are that personality, they are that energy level. But when we are going for higher and bolder visions, most often than not, we have to break out of old patterns, and we have to be much more adaptable in the moment and way more tuned in to who we really are and the vision that's coming out of us. And we need usually space for that, right? Some space where we can just contemplate, dream, imagine, research, look into things, feel into things, and have the time like an artist to really see like what it is that we're creating, so that once we have that vision, we can then direct our energy much more forward into like, now that I have these things in place, I can now maybe systematically ensure that certain things are going to get done. Let's say marketing, for example, the financial side, for example. The things are going to get done so that I don't have to keep putting tons of energy into it, but I have systems that can take care of it. So these are ongoing things that we're going to have, like, we have for all of our lives. It's not like, oh, we did it once and now we never have to think of it again, unless, again, somebody wants to have a calmer, quieter, smaller life, and that's perfectly cool. It's just for those who are probably listening to my videos, there's something's wanting to come out of you that's actually greater than places you have been. It is the soul doesn't pause. The soul doesn't go, okay, this is it, and let's just hang out here forever in this energy, right? It's constantly evolving us. And I find when we don't evolve, personally, when we don't make that choice, the world starts pushing in, and then we find ourselves having to react instead of being the one who gets to create. So yeah, take this video and look at how, what does consistency mean for you? Where are the places that's actually supporting you, and where are the places that it's taking your energy away? Because you want to use it for maximum benefit, of course, right? For maximum joy, for really feeling alive in life. And I think feeling alive is a pretty good barometer for how well you're doing in many ways, right? Because when we're alive, we are in the present moment, right? Something has lit us up that we are present to it, and we're not bogged down in thought and plans and schedules and lists and all that more mental energy that can be very exhausting and draining as well. And you may want to watch a couple of my past videos. The one I talk about, like the idea of the ecosystem, about higher visions, so that this makes sense within that as well. So thanks for listening. Whatever you got out of this, I would love to hear your comment. If you haven't liked or subscribed, please do. And while I haven't been as frequent in my videos recently, know that I really do enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the times when I can actually contribute more here. So thanks for listening, and I will see you again soon.